How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here on Wrestling Observer Radio. It is May 21st, 2012, here at Figure4Online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. Lots of stuff to talk about today, including the WWE Over the Limit pay-per-view. Believe it or not, they did exactly what everybody expected them to do in the main event. John Laurinaitis beat John Cena after the Big Show came in and helped John Laurinaitis win. It did look like Big Show was doing this against his better judgment, perhaps against his will. So I guess we'll see how this plays out on Raw Monday night. But can't say too much about the main event. It was perversely entertaining in some ways. The Daniel Bryan CM Punk match, however, certainly delivered. And hard to say this was not a good show with that match on it.
Yeah, I mean that and the world title match were both really good. But it was really pretty much that. And the tag team title match was good. And then a lot of the rest of the stuff really was like a lot of so-so, semi-bad, really bad, depending on your point of view, matches. The main event was it wasn't boring, but it was terrible. I mean, it really was. It was terrible. And the women's championship match, the Divas match, was I kind of expected it to be like not good, but better than average, and it was not better than average.
No, it
was
was
below average.
Quite bad, actually.
Yeah, and they had a lot of the card. If you take the Punk match out, I would say it was a thumbs down show, but it was, I don't know. I know that like the group that I had here, they were, I guess it was because of the main event, but it was just like pretty negative reaction, actually. But the Punk match was great. So, yeah.
Show opened up with a battle royal in session. That's right.
Yeah.
They were doing the FBI warning, and in the background you could hear screaming and grunting. And the show comes on the air, and there's dudes in the ring beating on each other. And it was a battle royal where the winner got to choose either the Intercontinental Champion or the U.S. Champion to get a title shot against. And it was a bunch of dudes. William Regal was there, believe it or not. And pretty much everybody that wasn't on the card and Miz, who was on the card. And actually it came down to Miz and Christian there at the end, and Christian gave him a shoulder block through the rope, sent him to the floor, and ended up getting the win. And by Battle Royal standards, the one on Impact was much better. This was a Battle Royal. Yeah,
I think that was maybe one of the things that if you'd seen the Battle Royal on Impact, this one was really pale by comparison. I mean, it was a Battle Royal with guys that nobody cared about, with the exception of about 3 guys.
It was a geek Battle Royal.
Yeah, but no T-shirts.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And it introduced Christian and everything, and it had a storyline. I mean, the winner and all that. But I mean, as far as like during the match, during the Battle Royal, I don't think that there was anything of like really importance that happened. I mean, as far as storyline wise, as far as like who sent who out or anything like that, other than Christian as a babyface, and he worked as a babyface, and the crowd, I guess, when it came down to the final 3, was liking him more than the Miz and David Otunga. But it was like he didn't turn, I don't know. I think it's always good to have someone turn if they're going to turn, if they're a star, just because. And I guess there's like the new thing in wrestling is that you don't turn them, you just put them on the other side, and just the crowd will figure it out, which eventually they will. But it's like the turn is always, if you got the right kind of turn, that's always the most memorable part of the switching sides, as opposed to, okay, now he's on the other side. Now he's going to be facing the other guys. But I don't know. It was there. It was. I mean, nothing special. I mean, nobody really looked special or did anything special.
Well, maybe they considered the turn the fact that it was him and Miz, and he eliminated Miz, who everyone hates. Therefore, he's a babyface now.
Yeah, well, really, it must have been really good because when he and Cody had their match, which was technically sound, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Yoshitatsu took a bad bump.
It's
out of the ring.
tough to blame Christian for that when it's hard to care about.
I didn't blame Christian.
Yes, you book a guy as a loser for months straight, and then you put him in a championship match as champion, and no one's going to care. So anyway, we'll get.
And he lost championships. This one really does the Cody Rhodes championship run. This does have to go down, I think, as probably the worst championship run of anyone, because he just got squashed all the way through.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened here.
And yeah.
We had Truth and Kofi against Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger. Tag title match. The good guys won, and it was a glorified Raw match to me. I think the only real thing of note was the finish where Kofi ended up kicking Dolph as Dolph did I don't know what he was doing, some sort of dive. He was in midair and he got kicked and
he was kind of running and charging,
bump.
And then he got the Trouble in Paradise kick. So it was well timed. So I mean, I think it was just Dolph's idea, to do something
crazy.
Well, no, to just like the finish was going to be the finish, so he tried to make it a little bit more than just Trouble in Paradise finish.
That's one thing when you take a bunch of crazy bumps that you kind of have this expectation you're going to take something crazy in the end of every match. Now you're diving into these crazy kicks, which is fine. Just
yeah, the commentary in this match was weird because they were having a good match. This was a good. It was like you said. Yeah, it's kind of a Raw match, but it was a good Raw match as opposed to just a match. It was, but God, that Vicky Guerrero stuff. It was like, I mean, there was a point where it's like, just Lawler, shut up already.
Somebody, I think it was Lawler, was talking about how fat her arms were, and they showed a replay at the end of her shaking her arms, and they were not fat at all.
Well, the thing is people say this, okay, and sometimes it's like a running joke and everything. But this is the reality. I mean, if you ever go and see these people in person, okay, or anyone who's on television in person, they're always smaller people than they look on TV. I mean, if you see like actresses on TV or something like that, they're always much skinnier in person than they look on TV, and that's one of the reasons why they're so skinny is because the camera adds 10 pounds or whatever that story is. The point is that if you saw Vicky Guerrero in person, I mean, she would probably be a I don't know. I mean, just a normal to very attractive woman for, who's 43 years old or whatever she is, 42 years old. And I mean, like there's, you can get on her case over, a lot of things because she is a heel, and that's probably what the announcer should do. But her looks and her weight, it's just kind of ridiculous. Especially her weight is ridiculous because, I remember years ago when they did that fat ass gimmick with Molly Holly,
mm-hmm.
and they got besieged by people because number one, they do have several million women watching. Not on this pay-per-view tonight they don't, but tomorrow night they will. Or not several million, but over 1 million women are going to watch Raw. It's usually about 1.3 million, 1.4 million women on a Monday night. And very few of them are like anorexic, and most of them have their own issues, or have issues with something or other. And it was like hitting them where they didn't like it. And, they ended up dropping that angle pretty quick. With Mickie James, they didn't drop it so quick because that was, a message and everything like that. But with Vicky, that was just part of the whole thing. Of that was Vicky's role until, the Be a Star people had got complaints and turned into a thing where they told them to lay off, and maybe they just figured that nobody's watching. It's time to go back. I mean, it's Vince. You got to put it this way: if Vince didn't want it to happen, he'd have told Lawler to shut up. And the fact that it happened over and over again tells me that he wanted it to happen, and that was Lawler's role. Or at worst, he was encouraging it once Lawler got it started. I don't know which, but whatever it was, no one told him to shut up.
I will say in regards to the commentary that Michael Cole, I thought, was pretty damn good this evening in terms of he had some funny lines on this show. And I don't say that very often. But he was in a rare form this evening. It wasn't like it was great commentary or anything, but he had a couple of funny lines here and there. Yeah. The Layla, actually, first we had the Eve Torres deal. She's backstage with Kurt Hawkins and Tyler Rex. And she explains to them that their job tonight is to go into the crowd and confiscate any signs that could be construed negatively towards John Laurinaitis. And she said, well, first she asked David Otunga if this was legal, and he confirmed it was. And this led to Lawler talking about freedom of speech, which was hilarious.
That was kind of funny because, I mean, everyone knows that they, the company has had a track record of confiscating signs dating back, 2 decades. Or longer than that, longer than 2 decades, because, I mean, it started being an issue in the mid-'80s was the first I remember about it, where they would, take away signs at the TV, TV, not at house shows.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the funny part is that the idea was to take away all the negative signs, but they really only just did that for, show for a minute, because when the match came on, there were all kinds of negative signs. So it was like
Well, it's only 2 men. Come on now.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a lot of signs.
And they only did it for on camera. It wasn't like they actually were going through the arena actually during the show.
That would have been a great distraction.
Yeah.
Layla and Beth Phoenix for the Divas title. I actually showed up late for this show, so I watched half of this match, and then later I went back and watched the whole show, and I ended up seeing this match twice, and upon second viewing in particular, wow, this match was bad. They botched a
lot of botched spots.
Every single spot they tried early. The finish, I will say, the finish was well done. Other than that,
well, the move of the finish was well done, but yeah, I mean, the sequence. They had a sequence
that
last
there.
Sequence was very well done. Yeah.
Yes, the last sequence was very good, but up until that point, this was a god awful match. And Layla got the pin with the Neckbreaker, and that was the end of that. This was no buys.
Yeah. Just that wasn't even the crowd's fault. They just were missing stuff.
Randy Orton and Jericho were doing a promo, talking about how Jericho said he'd beaten Orton and he'd beaten Sheamus, and the only reason he hadn't beaten Alberto was because Alberto wasn't showing up. And, of course, Jericho vowed to win, prove he was the best in the world. Orton said tonight he was going to get RKO'd and beaten, and anyway, neither man was correct. Sheamus won the 4-way. Sheamus, Orton, Jericho, and Alberto Del Rio. A lot of good 4-way spots when they weren't doing the spot where 2 guys were outside the ring completely having disappeared and the other 2 guys did a bunch of spots. Teased a lot of different finishes. Everyone hit their finish of some sort at the end, and they even repeated the finish from the Sheamus-Orton match on Friday, the RKO into a cradle, which was not a near fall, and ended up with Jericho. I don't know what happened because they didn't show a replay and I didn't rewind it, but there was a spot where I can't remember if Jericho was being pinned or he was pinning. He must have been being pinned because he was on his back, and Alberto came to break up a pin, and it looked like he stomped right on Chris Jericho's face. And this led pretty much immediately to Jericho taking the white noise, as they're calling Sheamus's Emerald Ferocian finisher. And he ended up getting pinned. So Sheamus retained the title. And a lot of good stuff in this match. It was a good match.
Very good match, yeah. I think it's pretty obvious that Jericho's days are winding down because this was very clean finish. And but yeah, everyone looked good. Alberto did a couple of arm bars. They were really cool. Ricardo Rodriguez was involved, but not over-involved. I think he took a draping DDT, draping DDT spot with from Orton, him and Alberto. And all kinds of stuff. Yeah, good match. Really, it was about it's what you would expect. It was what you would expect from the match overall, but because I had high expectations anyway. It was, I guess, exactly what you would expect. Very, very good match.
They did mention during the match that there's a story up on WWE.com about Jericho with the author asking, why did he bother returning? Because he loses perpetually.
So maybe that's going to play into him leaving.
Well, he had to. They said he had to prove something tonight, and they ended up getting pinned. So presumably that's going to play into a storyline tomorrow night on Raw. They're claiming he's infuriated that this was written about him. So I guess we'll see if they play it up tomorrow or if they drop it.
Yeah.
We had Cody and Eve backstage and talking about how smart Christian was for choosing Santino instead of himself. He was going to legitimize the U.S. title. So eventually, of course, Christian came up and said, in fact, I will be facing you for the Intercontinental Championship.
He changed his mind.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
We had Brodus Clay against The Miz. The Miz did a quick dance-off. Actually, he didn't really have a dance-off. He just danced on his own prior to the match starting. And probably the best thing Miz has done in about a year now. And unfortunately, then they had a match.
That wasn't the best thing Miz has done in a year.
It was not as bad as the last match they had, but it was not very good. And Miz,
the thing with Brodus Clay, and you can really see the momentum going away. And I mean, eventually it was going to anyway, but they
the bell rings.
Yeah, the thing is, Brodus Clay needs to not talk because I think that there's something when he talks, it kind of it takes something away. And then when he wrestles, it's tough. It's like, how do you book the guy? Because if you have him go, like this is a 4-minute match, and about past the minute mark, it was already like, and what do you do? And you can't really beat him. He's not the character that you can really beat and do, and keep him hot. So they did this, and it was it's just feed guys to him. And Miz is another one like Jericho. Miz is going to be gone for a while, I think. I mean, I'm just assuming he's going to be gone for a while when they're doing the movie, and that's in June. So the mentality is we can beat them all, all the time, and they're certainly doing that.
They've been doing that for about 8 months now.
Yeah.
Ever since November, coincidentally. We had Cody and Christian for the Intercontinental title. They had a pretty good match, not a lot of heat, but they worked a pretty good match. Christian, of course, ended up winning the match and the title in his first real match back since he got injured. As noted, he is now a babyface. Cody Rhodes completing the absolute worst title reign probably in the history of the world. I don't know what's up with Cody. I don't know what to say about this fella. But aside from sucks to be him. But there you go. Christian, you're a new Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, I thought that Christian it was kind of like he was doing the usual Christian match, or at least as close to it as possible. I don't know that he didn't seem quite there yet, but, he really, again, there is ring rust, and he was injured and everything like that. I thought Cody was quite good at pretty much everything that he did, but, he's been booked horribly. The crowd didn't care. It was late in the show. By this point, they wanted to see the good matches. So they had a lot. They had a lot going against him as far as the crowd went. I mean, it was just. Plus, again, Christian was the baby face, and they didn't really know that since he's been a heel for so long, and he didn't do anything to turn. So it just created a situation where there wasn't really much to it. But Christian's a really good worker, though. But
yes, he is.
That the crowd didn't care here.
We had Punk and Daniel Bryan for the title. We had a CM Punk promo before it started where he said, 10 years ago, if you'd told Vince McMahon that in a decade, Daniel Bryan and CM Punk would be headlining a WWE pay-per-view, number one, Vince wouldn't know who either man was, and number two, his head would explode.
Neither would anyone else know who Daniel Bryan was.
That's true. That's true.
But, okay, here's the thing, though. You could say that about anyone at any time.
Yeah.
For the there's exceptions, people who had 20-year careers. But, I know the point he was making, and I guess it was, if you go to, 2004, there is validity. But at the same time, Punk has been, he's been on the roster for years now. It's, when Punk was in Ring of Honor, that was a long, long time ago. Daniel Bryan less long ago. But yeah, I think that and Punk, was given a shot. He had to pay his dues and all that stuff. But as far as like, he was on top on the ECW promotion, and he won his first, world title or WWE title with whatever it was, when he won the Money in the Bank. So he's been a player for years and years. So it's true. 10 years ago, yeah, Vince, it was a cute idea and everything, and I get where they're going from that these two guys used to wrestle each other in the Indies, but it was a long, long time ago. And but I mean, Daniel Bryan, I think, is more of a surprise than Punk, that as far as like how well he did. But I think who was it? I think that it was actually Lawler. Often, and certainly have been exceptions throughout the world, in history of wrestling, but the cream often does rise to the top, especially today when you have so little, talent at a certain level, at a main event level, that when you've got guys like that and they can talk, which is a key, and they can work, they're gonna have their number called, and they're gonna be able to stay there generally easier than the guys who falter in that spot. But then again, we've seen guys falter in that spot. I mean, just politically screw up. But I mean, I guess the deal is that these two guys didn't politically screw up either.
Also, AJ was lurking around, so
she never came out, though. I thought that they were teasing her. She's got to come out for a finish at some point pretty soon, but it was not in this match.
No. How long do they go?
23:57, I think it was.
24 minutes.
What?
24 minutes. I thought they hit the half-hour mark, but I guess not.
23:52. Oh, in the four-way, where they went like 15, 16 minutes, Booker T, when it was over, was talking about how, they had just gone 35, 40 minutes, and I was like, whoa, geez.
Hell, So they had a great match. God, this was a great match.
I loved the wrestling in this match.
Yeah, everything made sense.
So freaking great.
Daniel Bryan was awesome during this match. First, Punk worked over his knee forever. Then, of course, Daniel Bryan went to work on his, I guess his ribs, his back, whatever it was injured on.
Supposed to be the ribs coming off of the TV.
SmackDown.
The match with Kane. Which they didn't play into that as much as I expected they would, but it wasn't like they ignored it either. He did work it, and they did bring up that, but Punk, they didn't go in that direction quite as much as I thought that they would, at least at the beginning. Like, I thought he would at least have them wrapped up. They'd rip the tape off, things like that, and they didn't do that.
He didn't have them wrapped, and this is pure speculation on my part because I don't know, but within, moments of the match starting, I noticed that his back was all red. Like, before the match, they'd slapped his back around to try to get it all red, like it'd been beaten on or something like that. But I figured somebody would mention that on commentary. Look, his back is beat red, but nope. Nobody mentioned it, so I guess he probably took some chops to the back or something like that for absolutely no good reason. But it did play into the story of the match, and they did all of their usual spots at the end, trading near falls, trading finishing attempts, trading submissions. The finish saw Bryan get him in the yes lock, dead center in the middle of the ring, and he starts pulling him back and screaming yes. And on the third pull, he pulls so hard that he pulls Punk backwards on top of him, and the ref drops down to count 3. And the moment he counts 3, as Daniel Bryan is pinned, CM Punk, still in the hold, taps out. So Daniel Bryan thought he won. They explained that, no, my friend, your shoulders were down, you were pinned. And, of course, he was irate because CM Punk had tapped out. And I'm sure that will play into the storyline and hopefully lead to a great rematch.
I would think so. I thought it was a good finish to build to a rematch.
The only thing, I hate to even say a nitpick about this match, but I'm going to. The only thing I didn't like about that finish is Daniel Bryan had him in a hold, and his back was on the mat, and the ref counted 3. And earlier in the match, Daniel Bryan also had him in a hold with his back flat on the mat, surfboard.
The La Tapatia.
And the ref did not count at all during that spot. So that's the only thing I got to say. Other than that, this was
true.
awesome.
That's valid.
I think the referee just fell asleep on the job or something like that during that surfboard.
No, you can't very well do that La Tapatia move Maybe you know what? Maybe they shouldn't have done that move if that was going to be the finish.
Yeah,
but it was a cool move when he did it. I liked it.
It was a great move because he used to do it in ROH, and he would do the 1, 2, 3 and pull him back, and he basically
just the top of T is the upside down surfboard.
Yeah, but he did the yes spot.
He came from Mexico.
Yeah, he
the Rito Romero special. It's got a lot of different names.
Yes, he set him up. He grabbed the arms and he said yes once, yes twice, and on the third yes, he pulled him back into the top of Tias. So it was awesome. Great match. This is a great match.
I wouldn't call it match of the year. I mean, like if you compare it to like Davey Richards and Michael Elgin, or
Davey Richards and Michael Elgin was much better.
Yep, that's what I would say too. This was a great match, though. It's not meant to knock it or anything by saying that, but like to me, when it was over, it was like, is this a match of the year? And it was like, it's really not that good. But
it'll be a WWE match of the year for sure.
Well, Undertaker and Triple H at Mania to me was better than this one.
That's very good as well. This will be a top 5.
It could be. I don't know that that's a lock, but it could be. It could be. Okada and Naito was certainly better.
I'm talking top 5 WWE this year.
Top 5 WWE, yeah, maybe. Good chance, actually, yeah.
Ryback and Camacho. Swear to God.
Yeah, well, that's the idea of a buffer.
Why not?
It's pretty clear that after they do like a good match, that they follow. That the new thing is that they follow it with a buffer, and this was it. I mean, it's another one where, at this point in the show, doing this match, I don't think was a good idea because it made Ryback seem like a nothing as opposed to something big. They didn't react to him at all. No one really cared.
He was facing Camacho too, which led to a poor match.
Ryback's another one. He's like Brodus Clay. It's like Brodus Clay. Almost. Do you really need 2 of those matches on the same show?
No.
I guess if you're pushing both, maybe you do. I don't know.
Point I'm making is if you're going to have a Ryback squash, have him squash a guy that can work and sell for him well, like Unico.
Yeah, but does it matter when it's only going to be a minute anyway?
This was a bad 2-minute match.
And
that's hard to do.
It was a Ryback match. I mean, every Ryback match is the same. It was bad because it was so late in the show, and because Ryback is not as over as he could be. I mean, it's a little bit. I think that people maybe miss the making fun of the job guy spot.
And finally, John Cena versus Big Johnny, John Laurinaitis. Laurinaitis got heat for about a minute, midway through the match, when John Cena was beating on him all over the place, and Laurinaitis snapped his arm on the dashboard, and then he threw his shoulder into the post, and then I believe he hit him with a couple of chair shots, but that was the extent of it.
And then he also had a low blow a little bit later.
Yeah.
But didn't really follow up on it. But it was mostly, I mean, the early part of the match was all comedy, and there was a point, and I'll tell you when it was. It was when the STF where you go, the crowd. I mean, there were so many things about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in this STF, and if you can go 10 seconds without tapping, I'll let go. And it's just stupid on so many levels. I mean, if this was just a match where it was, there was no grudge involved or anything like that, and it was Santino Marella against who knows who, anyone, Cody Rhodes even, and it's just just something for entertainment in the middle of the show, and they pull that spot. Okay, but this is like you're trying to get rid of this guy, this general manager who's been doing all this stuff to you and brought in Brock Lesnar to massacre you and has been unfair to you and hit you with chairs and all the stuff that John Laurinaitis did, and you're treating it like this comedy. You put him in this thing, and it's like if the crowd counts at 10, and then the whole gimmick, in theory, should be, really, the crowd should be smart enough to know to count really slow, so he has to torture him, and they didn't pick up on that at all. They counted really fast, and they lets him go, and they go do the spot a second time, and the exact same thing, and I just thought this is, like, so stupid, especially with the way the match was going to end, because pretty obviously Johnny was winning this match. Just a question of how and who was going to be the one who interfered. And it just, I mean, Cena was cheered more than most, and I don't think that had to do so much with Cena as it had to do with Johnny, because Johnny's really easy to boo, and they did a lot of clever things with Johnny, like his ring outfit to hide his arms was funny. He had this people power, what's it called, rash guard.
Long-sleeved rash guard.
Yeah,
and these giant track pants.
I thought that was pretty funny.
It was a hilarious outfit.
Yeah, but I don't know. The match really. I mean, the match really sucked.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I kept thinking. It's like, I'm not bored, but this match is like really bad throughout. And then the finish. I mean, the whole thing on that finish was, in hindsight, it just made everything look stupid, because if he's going to do this, why did he wait so long when Johnny's just getting, destroyed the whole match? And I also hate the idea where where everyone knows you're doing something and you have to do it. So what you do is you say you basically tease that you're not going to do it, and then you do it, and you go, and it just went for such a long time. It's like, I mean, he's turning on him, and he throws him in the ring, and he's doing all this, and it's like, well, he's turning on him. But
it was so patently obvious when the Big Show came out and got in the ring that, like, every single person in the crowd knew it was going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's like they played it up so big on. I mean, and listen, I am not saying they should have changed their idea. If you got an idea, book the idea and go through with it. But it's pretty obvious when he came out there that they knew what was going to happen. So, to me, I agree fully that they should just pull the trigger a lot quicker. Big Show should have come out, thrown him in the ring, punched out John Cena. That was that. The long, dramatic wait for it to happen when everybody knew it was going to happen, that did not work in this particular instance.
The other thing too is I mean, I expected it. Obviously, we talked about it. Other than the fact that, well, I don't say I expected it because it was WWE, and it's almost like, well, if it's obvious, you don't do it. But the point is, since it was obvious and it was the thing to do, especially after what happened with Big Show on Raw, it was the only thing you could do. I think that the thing is that, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we have to do a match leading up to it. And to me, it's like, do the match. I think that they felt so much that they had to do, because this was the main event.
They had to go 15
that it
minutes.
had to go 17 minutes, and they could not do a wrestling match in that long because it would just be awful. So they treated the whole thing with, the total comedy thing, and they went way, way, way too long with the match, especially since it was, there was only one heat spot. It was almost all Cena beating on him, and I guess it's a show since he was going to lose to Laurinaitis. He had to get a lot of offense in, but man, I don't know. I just,
if you would have given 5 more minutes to the world title match and 10 more minutes to the Daniel Bryan match.
No, Daniel Bryan. You know what? Daniel Bryan match didn't need any more time. It was perfect length.
I'd rather you gave more time to that than almost anything else on this entire show.
But you certainly could have taken 8 minutes off of this match, and it would have been better.
And nobody would have complained. Not a single human being would have complained.
No, not at all. No, it would have, and it wouldn't have been as annoying. And the other thing is and just again, just play. Okay, this is where we're going. So let's just do a storyline that makes sense with it, like that STF spot, just as an example, or just the whole thing where John Cena's just toying with him, and it's like, again,
where was the Big Show?
In a match where beating the guy had such high stakes, he shouldn't be jacking off. That's how I was viewing it. It's like why is he jacking off out there and putting garbage can over the guy's head and things like that when he needs to be beating this guy? At least to pretend he's beating this guy to get the storyline over that the stakes are important, because by the time they got there, it's like, not only do you know, okay, John Laurinaitis is winning this match, but you don't really care because they've just mucked it all up. That by the time they got there, but you know what, by the time he threw the punch, I didn't care anyway. I mean, it's like they'd gone too long, they'd lost me, and the match was so bad.
Well, we'll see how they explain all this tomorrow Is Big Show doing this against his will? Was it a ruse all along? I guess we'll find out.
They got two ways to play it.
And actually, we probably won't find out tomorrow because, well, we may, but they are teasing.
Why wouldn't we find out tomorrow?
They're teasing that John Laurinaitis is badly injured. He's head injury, concussion, perhaps a torn ACL. They've got a whole laundry list of things on WWE.com that's wrong with this poor fool. So he may not even be on the show tomorrow. I guess we'll find out.
He's got to be on the show.
So
maybe he'll go out like he's a mummy or something.
Let's see. Yeah, that's great main event level.
He did get thrown in the apron that one time.
Oh, my God. That was his own idiocy.
Yeah.
Cena tried to roll him into the ring. This actually, it was like, I hated to laugh at it because it was like, it had to hurt. But Cena tried to throw him into the ring, to roll him into the ring, and he forgot his own spot and just smashed into the apron. And they showed a replay of it, and I think Laurinaitis was even laughing when he came up off of it because of how preposterous it was, and the announcers made mention of it, and oh my God. Let's take a look at what they've got here on WWE.com about him. John Laurinaitis may have crawled out with a win, but the GM's victory didn't come without a serious price. We've gotten word that he was rushed to the emergency room, showing signs of a possible concussion, possible ACL damage to his knee, and a possible spinal injury. He also suffered contusions over his entire body, difficulty raising his left arm and left leg, possible nerve damage, and perhaps a broken clavicle.
Jeez.
I can believe the clavicle from being smashed into the apron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go, everybody. We'll see what they do tomorrow. Let's see what we've got for Raw. What do we have for Raw?
I don't know. I get the impression that's, I don't think that he was really hurt or anything because I have heard from people since the show and nobody brought anything up about. The only thing that I heard, and I you know what, I haven't even gone back and watched the replay, but something happened between Lillian Garcia and Justin Roberts where Lillian stormed off. The live crowd could see it. I don't know if it was ever on television.
Really?
Yeah. And it had something to do with her botching something, or I don't know what it was, but it had to do with. I know it was the ring announcement of the Cody Rhodes Christian match, and they were arguing, and she stormed off. I know that, and I know that she botched the announcement of the Sheamus match. I mean, his weigh-in weight. I know that.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's no big deal or anything, but it was, whatever it was, there was like, it was not a good night for Lillian Garcia.
That sucks.
Yeah.
So anyway, Raw is tomorrow, and I guess we'll find out what happens with all of these things, and that's really all of the news for today so far, so I think we should jump into the mailbag here.
Good.
Always send your questions to mailbag@WrestlingObserver.com, and we got a million of them, so let's go here. What was the origin of people losing Loser Leaves Town matches and coming back specifically as Stagger Lee? I know that Coco Beware and the Dog both did. I assume this isn't a coincidence?
Probably one. I don't remember who did it first, but the other one, copied the same gimmick. But yeah, I'm trying to remember who did it first. I don't know. I don't know which one did it first. I'm thinking it was the Dog, but I don't remember. It was it was roughly the same period. It was roughly the first Stagger Lee that I remember was 1983, probably, with the Junkyard Dog and Mr. Olympia against Ted DiBiase and I think Matt Bourne, where the loser of the fall was going to have to leave town, and the Dog lost the fall, and he came back as Stagger Lee. Then he came back as Stagger Lee again in '84. They redid the thing, which was actually, that was the last Stampede, which actually was the high point of that territory, really. And then with Coco, I don't remember the Stagger Lee thing off the top of my head, other than they did it. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a coincidence. I mean, whoever did it first, the other one copied, because those two territories, at that point in time had a lot of. They both were in pretty good contact. I mean, because, you had Dundee was booking Mid-South, and Dundee was a Tennessee guy. And, they traded a lot of talent back and forth and stuff. So it was it was not a coincidence that happened, and I just don't remember which one it was first. And I don't remember the Coco Ware Stagger Lee stuff other than it happened.
The Stagger Lee was a very famous character in the South, and probably anybody that lived in the South was well aware. About 18 million people recorded Stagger Lee songs.
Well, the famous song. Really... Yeah. Well, that was the ring, and that was they did it so they could do that. They could play that music as the ring entrance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when in both cases when the guy came out.
All right, this person says, I just finished Nikita Koloff's book, and he claims Ric Flair offered him the world title to return to WCW in 1990. Is there any truth to this claim?
That Rick said that to him to come back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why I would say that it wasn't true. Whether it would have happened or not, I mean, Rick was Booker, so maybe he had the power to do it. It would have been a terrible idea. But did he say that to him and ask him to come back? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
All right, we've got why were Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan split up in 1991, and Perfect was put with some guy named Coach
John Tolos.
He was more than some guy. He was a famous some guy.
Yeah, but he wasn't any good in the role. You know, John Tolos was terrible.
He actually was quite horrible as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that disappointed everyone because John Tolos was such a tremendous interview, and then as coach, he was such a terrible interview. And I talked to John Tolos about that, and he in his mind, he believed that he could cut a promo talking about himself, but he could not cut a promo talking about somebody else. My thought is that John Tolos could be great John Tolos, but he could not be a great coach. I thought that between the blowing the whistle and everything, that it was just a bad gimmick for it might have been a bad gimmick for anyone. It was kind of a stare. On paper it sounded like something. Well, everyone had a PE coach, right? That you remember from high school who blew a whistle and acted like that.
I do, in fact. His name was Mr. Wardlow.
Well, everyone had one, Bryan. But anyway, the whole point of it is, as far as Bobby Heenan was suffering from neck problems and he didn't want to manage anymore because he felt he couldn't be the manager, going in the ring, taking the bumps and things like that they wanted to. So he wanted out as manager. I think he came back later with Rick, but I'm trying to remember the timing of all that when. I don't remember which was. Wait. The coach, Rick came in September '91. That I remember, and I'm trying to remember. The coach was before that, definitely before that, because they got rid of the coach in '91. I think by SummerSlam. I don't remember if the coach.
I remember he was there with Mr. Perfect right before that match with Bret Hart.
I think that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was the end of Perfect for a while.
That's August, so that means that so Heenan had taken time off, but the reason they brought in coach and everything was because Heenan's neck was really bad from all the years of taking bumps in wrestling, and he just didn't want to be out there taking bumps. He didn't want to be, in his mind as a manager, when his guy was getting hit, he wanted to snap back and sell it because he thought that was what a manager should do. He should be so into the match. And he could no longer do that, so he didn't really want to be at ringside, although he did end up managing Rick later. But it was because it was Rick that he just did some stuff with Rick because of that. But he ended up, if you remember, he did a little bit with Rick, and then he got out, and Kurt, Mr. Perfect, ended up managing Rick for a long time.
All right, this person here says, I used to love weekday afternoon wrestling on ESPN, but it drove me crazy how every time a heel did something illegal, they would cut to a long crowd shot. They did this dozens of times with the GWF. What was the story with this?
They had a guy who was doing production, and that they had different guys in those days that did production. They all had different ideas of what to do, and they had their quirks, and that was the guy there. I remember in WCW in that era, Tommy Edwards was the head of the production. And Tommy Edwards, when something got really hot and the crowd would be jumping up and down, he always cut right to the crowd because he thought that it showed the excitement. But the thing is, it was like that was the peak of the high spot, and he would switch to the crowd because he thought that made it so exciting. But we missed the key to the thing. So I used to get so frustrated watching those WCW matches, and then, at the absolute wrong time, he would do the crowd shot. So it's just...
Is he currently working for TNA?
What?
Is he currently working for TNA?
No, but a lot of those guys from that era are working for TNA.
Shocking.
Yeah.
This person says in 1998, a British tabloid reported that Janet Jameson was in negotiations with the WWF. Was there any truth to this?
Yes, she wanted to get in at one point, and she did do a video with Val Venus, but it never went any further. And she did do some stuff with ECW before. Paul Heyman was the one who actually brought her in. So yeah, but she did. This was before she got as rich as she would later become, and I don't know if she's married to Tito Ortiz, but she's with him. But she did that. I do remember that there were negotiations going on, and she was trying to get into to do that, and just they didn't. I think that just they did the one thing with Val Venus, and that was it.
This person says, do you have any memories of Brian Pillman's feelings on New Jack? I ask because I've heard New Jack speaking negatively of Pillman for over 15 years, and I was wondering if Pillman felt the same way.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, let's face it, you're out there cutting a promo, and this guy wants to beat you up, and you're in a freaking wheelchair. I mean, I think that, if he wasn't in a wheelchair, maybe he would have gone, either try to talk him down or whatever, but Bryan was all fucked up, and this guy wants to fight him when, he was all fucked up, after the wreck and everything. And it's want to beat up a guy in a wheelchair? And then, they had New Jack really wanted to go after him. And I know why, because he thought what Bryan was saying, but Bryan was talking about a rap band, and New Jack thought he was making a racial slur. And I can see where New Jack was coming from, that, and Bryan was trying to be Bryan, but he was in a wheelchair, but yeah, did Bryan think badly of New Jack? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Just a quick question. What was the deal with the rumored Jerry Springer involvement with the WWF around SummerSlam 98? How far in negotiations did the two sides get, and what was to be his involvement?
I don't remember as far as, I don't know if it was hosting or hosting segment or whatever the thing was, but yeah, it didn't happen.
All right. Let's see. I heard you guys talk about how sometimes there will be a real buzz about a guy in developmental and people just know they are going to be a star. I think the specific names mentioned were Kurt Angle and The Rock. I was just wondering, has there ever been a real buzz about a guy who has subsequently flopped or not managed to live up to expectations?
Drew McIntyre comes to mind right away. There's been plenty. If I had time to think about this one, I bet I could come up with a lot more. But he was one. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know, Matt Morgan maybe to an extent, but that wasn't so much a buzz from the big company.
That was from Cornette.
That was more from Cornette, and
that was a famous Cornette flopped prediction.
Yeah. He thought he was going to be a WrestleMania main eventer, and it didn't happen. That's for sure. And Cornette usually had a pretty good track record. I remember there was the thing, because Cornette was, the first one on the The Rock, and the first one on Edge, and all those guys, and the one that he missed on was Sable. He was just she's not going to make it, and I guess you could make an argument that he was right in hindsight in the sense that she quit and all that. But they did make her into a pretty big star. I just remember the one that they would always go was Cornette was real. His track record on picking those guys was really good, but Sable wasn't it. But God, who else? Who else has been that they have high hopes for coming out of developmental? That MVP for sure. And and he was never as big. He was never as big as they had expected him to be. But he got to a certain level, but certainly not to the level that they wanted or that they were thinking he was going to be when they first started on him. Who else? Probably Ted DiBiase. but I think that was more the company, because Ted DiBiase did have something, even though he lacked a little bit in the charisma department, but he's a very good worker, and they just beat it out of him. I really don't blame Ted DiBiase, because it wasn't like he sucked or anything. Whereas with Drew, Drew was Chris Masters for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as the company, that was the reverse. Chris Masters was the guy that when he got in there in developmental, that they liked his attitude. I mean, I remember in OVW they liked his attitude. He was with Brent Albright, and when they put him with Brent Albright in the tag team to make him, because Brent was a good worker, and they did that to make Masters, to kind of hide him and everything like that, and WWE saw him with the physique and the size and everything, and that he wasn't looking that bad in OVW, and they brought him up and they were going to give him the giant push, and I remember the OVW was like, he's not ready. He will be. It wasn't like they thought he sucked and wasn't going to make it. It was that they thought it was too soon, and it clearly was. And obviously, years later, Masters became a really good wrestler, but his career never fully recovered, and he never became the star that he should have been because they brought him up too quick, and people thought of him as a flop and everything. I think that some of the Maven Huffman, in a sense, but there's a lot of fault there at Maven Huffman. I don't know. There's probably a ton of people that they were really, really high on over the years that didn't make it, but those are the ones that popped in my head right away.
And finally here, any update on Jeff Katz's WRP project?
No. Have you heard anything on that?
I have not heard anything, and I know people that were involved that haven't heard anything, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, wasn't it supposed to be on the internet, or
Netflix or something?
Somewhere, but wasn't it supposed to be the end of last year?
I'll try and get an update in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just haven't heard nothing on it. I mean, they did all the taping. I mean, I remember that. They had a lot of good people, and then they never did a second set of tapings, and they never, nothing.
All right, everybody, we'll do more questions tomorrow. Mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com. We'll be back after Raw. There's a lot of stuff up on the front page right now, including a new show we did last night, new Wrestling Observer Live, this show, obviously, and a lot of stuff coming up tomorrow. So check all of it out, and we'll talk to you again after a while.